All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about how to break free from OCD and anxiety, and really what that means, and more importantly, how to actually accomplish that. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Codde. I am a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And before we dive into the episode, I'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing if you're joining us via YouTube or if you're joining us via podcast. Just leaving a quick review, obviously, hopefully a nice one on iTunes and Spotify, as it just helps the algorithm of the show and it helps us get this information to more people. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and dive in. So, when it comes to OCD and anxiety, in really being stuck in it, the easiest way I can explain the what it's like to somebody is like you're really just like stuck in this wheel, right? These thoughts are popping up, these feelings are coming up in the body, and you're doing everything you can to try to change the thoughts and feelings. And the more you try to change them, the more you try to get rid of them, they just seem to get worse and worse, and you wind up in this wheel and essentially feel stuck. And so when I talk about breaking free from OCD and anxiety, what I'm really talking about is this idea of breaking out of that loop, right? It's not, and one of the reasons that we're in the loop in the first place is because we have a big misperception of what the problem is that we're experiencing. So in this series, I'm going to talk about breaking free from OCD and anxiety, and I'm going to dive into, very specific manifestations of that, whether it's intrusive thoughts, whether it's contamination, whether it's driving, and really attempt to paint a picture of what that's like to experience that specific manifestation and the things that need to happen in order to break free from it. So the first step, and really what this specific episode is about just understanding the problem, right? So as we move into 2024 at the time of this recording, one of the main things that I see people that keeps people stuck is this idea of a misunderstanding of what they're trying to solve. And most people are actually trying to, again, stop the thoughts or stop the feelings. And even then they're trying to get involved with the content of the thought itself. So if you think of a thought like a cloud or a bubble, the content is what's inside the bubble, right? So what if, I get HIV? What if I accidentally drive my car off a bridge? What if fill in the blank? Whatever that fear thought is, right? That would be the content of the thought. The thought itself is really the experience, right? And then the emotions or the energy or the anxiety are what is really being experienced in the body. And so what most people are doing is they're trying to fight and stop one of those three things. They're trying to fight the content of it, like I'm not really going to drive my car off. They're trying to stop the thoughts themselves, or they're trying to get rid of the feelings. What they don't realize is that by doing any of those three options, you're going to do a safety behavior, sometimes called a compulsion, but I prefer the term safety behavior because essentially you're doing a behavior that's attempting to keep you safe. Now that could be things like, again, avoiding things that trigger you. It could be getting reassurance. It could be ruminating. It could be rationalizing. It could be analyzing. It could be trying to, thought block, thought suppress, thought replace, silently pray about the situation. It could be a variety of things, right? And they're physical and mental behaviors that we engage in. The problem is by engaging in those safety behaviors, they may make that feeling better. They may take the thought away for a second, but they reinforce the idea that that's a dangerous experience, that you're not supposed to have that experience. And paradoxically end up creating them more. And then you do more behaviors. And the more you engage in those behaviors, the more you reinforce, and that loop just forms, right? And that loop is vicious because, and this is when what people don't understand is and I believe this wholeheartedly is anxiety or thoughts are not a disorder. You don't have a disease if you have anxiety. Anxiety is a normal human experience. Intrusive thoughts and thoughts in the mind are a normal human experience. What happens is when this loop gets really spinning out of control, it takes up so much of your time because you're engaging so much time in doing all these behaviors that the fact that it takes up so much time is what creates disorder in your life. Okay. And what that means is essentially your relationships get impacted. You can't work as efficiently. Maybe you can't work at all. Maybe you can't leave your home, right? But the misperception is the reason I have a disorder is because I have these thoughts or I have these feelings. So the entire focus of the individual becomes, I'm going to get rid of these thoughts. I'm going to get rid of these feelings. And then I won't have a disorder anymore. And this is where everything goes awry, in my opinion and experience, is because it's not the thoughts or the feelings that are the disorder. It's the fact that you're engaging in safety behaviors and the loop is going. The more that loop goes, the more disorder you're going to experience in your life. And so when we understand that, and that's what this first part of this series is about, is understanding that the loop is the thing that we are breaking, not trying to break, because there's actually a very clear strategy on how to break the loop. Now, if you want more information on that and you want to go in depth, I would highly suggest you getting a copy of my book, From Stuck to Unstuck. Again, we have it for like $5 or $5.90 on our site, and it comes with the audiobook and a 10-part training as well for $5. So we have a link down below. You can just click on it and get instant access to it. You can also order it on Amazon as well if you prefer that. But that's going to really give you that 30,000 foot picture of everything more in depth that I'm going to go into on this series. But the first thing that we have to do to be successful is really understand that the loop is the problem. Not the content of the thought, not the thoughts themselves, and not the feelings. As long as we're trying to solve one of those things, we're going to inadvertently create the loop and therefore keep the loop going. Once we understand the loop is the problem, you begin to understand that the way to break the loop is by not engaging in any safety behaviors. And if you successfully remove the safety behaviors, the loop can't exist. And this is where I'm going to make some quote unquote controversial statements here, perhaps. But, I don't believe that OCD is uncurable or untreatable, or this chronic condition you're going to have for the rest of your life. And the reason that I don't believe that is pretty straightforward. Number one is it's not my experience, having lived in it personally and having gone through the process of recovery myself, and having worked with many, many people now over the years, and seeing people have results as well. I know that it's possible. The second is just per the definition of OCD and the diagnostic material in the DSM, or the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. In order to have OCD, you have to have obsessions and compulsions. Both have to be present to get a diagnosis of OCD. And if you don't do compulsions, which are behaviors that you can in fact choose whether or not to engage in, you can't be given a diagnosis of OCD, right? It's like, it's not, you have to have those present. And because we can change behavior and actually not engage in them, then you can't be given that if you really are not engaging in any behaviors. Now, the problem is, again, most people are engaging in a ton of behaviors they don't even realize, right? The rumination, the analyzation, right? The thought blocking, the checking to see if thoughts are there, all that other stuff. And, obviously that's why the AAA response exists. That's why my whole philosophy is founded on, the AAA response, because we need to make sure we're eliminating mental behaviors and physical behaviors in order to break the loop. But you can learn more about that in the book, and I'll go into it in this series as well. But the thing I want to stress is when we're talking about overcoming and breaking free from OCD and anxiety, we have to understand it from a loop perspective. We are solving a loop problem, not a thought and not a feeling problem. If you get that, now you're at least looking at the problem correctly, right? And then from there, once we understand the problem correctly, we begin to work at implementing a solution that's going to solve that problem. What most people do, and this is why most people get stuck and why most people that are on this journey have such a difficult time with achieving recovery or achieving a state of recovery or practicing recovery, breaking the loop, is because they've identified the problem incorrectly and are trying to take solutions and solve that problem that they believe is the problem. I read a quote by Albert Einstein, and I'm totally going to butcher this because I don't have it in front of me, but, essentially he said something to the effect of, if I had an hour to solve the problem, I would spend 55 minutes identifying the problem and 5 minutes implementing a solution. And what the brilliance of, and I know that's probably not exactly how the quote goes. I'm very much paraphrasing the idea. But the idea is that a lot of times we assume we know what the problem is. And that false assumption is what keeps us stuck. When you get crystal clear on what the actual problem is, meaning the loop itself, the solution becomes obvious. Most people, even upon hearing this, are going to say something like, oh, Matt, yeah, okay, I get it. It's a loop problem, but I still don't want these thoughts and feelings. That's not what we're trying to solve. The thing is by breaking the loop, the nervous system will calm down because you're not keeping it in that sympathetic state, that fight or flight state, and the thoughts and feelings will subside over time. But it's not, if you have a thought and have a feeling, we need to be able as humans to be able to navigate those experiences because they're normal human experiences. When you're trying not to have a normal human experience, you're going to experience a great deal of distress. It'd be like saying, well, I want to go running, but I don't want to sweat. And it's like, well, sweating is a normal thing, And so the big thing that keeps people stuck is, again, not understanding the problem correctly. I just want to emphasize that point so much. When you understand this is a loop problem, then you understand the solutions that we're implementing and why we're implementing them. That's what makes it effective. Now, again, you want to deep dive on this. Again, I have a book. It's $5.90. It has a whole audiobook with it and a whole 10-part video training as well. It will give you the complete overview if you want to just dive into this quickly. I'm going to, talk about specific problems here or specific manifestations of OCD and anxiety as we go into the tools. And then we're going to talk about, all the different types of OCD and anxiety and really lay out, what that intervention and what that breaking out of that specific loop would look like in this series. But if you want to skip ahead and dive in, I have a little link down in the notes. You can grab a copy there. You can also get it on Amazon as well. We'll link there. If you do buy it on Amazon, I would really appreciate it if you'd write a review as well, as that really helps me as well. So I hope this was helpful. And again, I'm really excited to move in this series in 2024 because I think it's going to be really impactful and powerful for people that are struggling. And again, if you are struggling, I want you to know you can break out of this loop. And you have to decide to believe that yourself. Because a lot of times we're carrying these beliefs, and we'll talk about beliefs later in the series, but we're carrying these beliefs that have been placed on us by other people of what they believe is possible. I know it's possible to break out of the loop. Not only have I seen it personally, I've walked many people through this process, and I've seen it happen time and again, regardless of the theme, regardless of what the person's experiencing. The way you do that is first recontextualizing the problem correctly. Then it's about understanding the tools to implement to solve the problem correctly. So with that said, we'll continue this series in the next episode. So please make sure to check that out. We'll be releasing it shortly. And with that, I wish you a great day, a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.